Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Craig Libman. I am president of the North Carolina Treasury Management Association, the NCTMA. Today, we're going to have a webinar. It's called Treasury Meets AI, Insights for Smarter Decisions. I'd like to introduce Neil Smiljan. He's from Wave Access. Neil, please take it away.
Greg, thank you so much. Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today as we kick off this exciting webinar, Treasury Meets AI. Over the next hour, we're going to take a practical journey into the world of AI, specifically tailored for Treasury and finance professionals. Our goal is simple: to cut through the noise and give you a clear and grounded understanding of what AI can and can't do for your Treasury operations. AI is no longer a buzzword. It's a tool that increasingly shaping how businesses operate. But with so much information out there, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. That's why today we'll focus on equipping you with the knowledge to assess whether AI is the right fit for your organization and how to avoid common pitfalls along the way. So before we jump into it, I'd like to make two introductions of our speakers today. First, I'd like to introduce Tanya Kohen, who many of you might know, certified Treasury professional with over 20 years of experience in Treasury management across industries like transportation, retail, and healthcare. She has led the adoption of advanced technologies and AI-driven tools to optimize Treasury operations for organizations ranging from nonprofits to $22 billion retail giants. She actually serves on the board of the North Carolina Treasury Management Association, hence I thought maybe many of you might know her, and is a sought-after speaker and educator. Tanya has a unique talent for bridging the gap between Treasury and technology, and she'll be sharing her insights on how AI can drive smarter decisions in Treasury. Joining Tanya this afternoon, along with myself, is Paul Chayka from Wave Access, an expert in integrations and, oh, well, there you go, an expert in integrations and AI solutions. Paul particularly specializes in designing and implementing ETL workflows, system integrations, and AI-driven solutions. With deep expertise in generative AI, he focuses on solving complex business challenges using large language models. He oversees a cutting-edge AI tool that leverages both cloud-based and on-premise LLMs to deliver powerful insights and analytics based on structured data and text files. With over 80 AI projects under his belt and Wave Access's belt, Wave Access brings a wealth of technical expertise, and Paul will be sharing insights from that experience today. Feel free to drop questions in or comments in the chat throughout the session. We love this to be a discussion. We're going to run some polls, so we appreciate your feedback in that. And let me turn it over to Tanya.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. If you can, yeah. So here's the agenda for today. And well, again, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining. And yes, this is my favorite group, my favorite NCTMA, and I'm so happy that we're doing this today. And again, the idea here was to bring, at least as I see it, right, to bring IT team to Treasury a little closer, and for all of us to have this opportunity to ask questions, if kind of explore things that we don't have time to explore in our daily work because we're just so busy, and sometimes it's just work gets overwhelming and so much data around us. So today's discussion is, first of all, my hope is that takeaway is few new thoughts on how we could all use AI in our daily jobs, and then ask questions and things that you're too busy to ask, maybe your in-house IT. So with that, we are going to talk about what applications of AI are already out there, and Treasury departments are using them. And I've worked on a few projects with Wave Access as a consultant, and helped them, bridge this gap between finance teams, Treasury teams, and technology, especially the newest technology. So we'll talk about a few cases there today, and then just also a few examples and kind of vision for the future kind of state use cases as well. And with that, if you can move to the next slide, Neil. So what is AI in Treasury? And just for, to kind of set the terms here today, AI is not just one tool or one technology even, right? So it is a whole suite of technology and different tools, machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing. And I also kind of, when we talk about AI, I also like to distinguish between tools that are more tailored towards numbers, so to speak, and algorithms. That would be machine learning, would be, closer to that. And then we'll have language models like ChatGPT. And there are so many others that are emerging right now, including DeepSeek and all, other things, not just OpenAI with their ChatGPT, although that's a very strong solution. And also what we're seeing right now is that on-premise models are also kind of being used a lot by corporations. This is usually viewed as a more secure way of implementing models, language models, and AI within the perimeter of the organization, so that you're not sending your sensitive information to the cloud or to the vendor that you are not sure what they're doing with this information. So I just wanted to mention that there are different options of working with the language models, because sometimes when they say ChatGPT, everyone's mind just goes to, oh, this is sending my data to internet. I don't want to do that, right? So this is not necessarily how it's going to, work. So, but that being said, it's not, AI isn't magic, right? So we're not expecting it to, it's a very powerful, can be powerful tool, but in enabled hands, so to speak. So we need to pair the technology with quality data and with human expertise. And I think this is why it is so important that we, as treasury professionals, actually try to learn more and try to kind of think through the use cases for our jobs, because IT teams are not going to come in and do it for us, right? And vendors that are building great products based on AI right now certainly would have some good robust solutions, but unless we tweak our processes and to kind of think through how we can delegate work to AI a little more and not be eliminated, but work more strategically and bring more insights to our boards, to our CFOs. Unless we, don't kind of really dive in and figure this out, it's not going to help us, in the short run or the long run. So that's why I think it's so important for all of us to be here today and to discuss these topics. And so with that, I think we can move to the first poll question. This is for the audience to kind of, and for us to understand where you all stand in your journey right now.
Yep. So our first poll, thanks, Tanya. I'll take it over from here for the poll.
Yep.
Where are you at in your AI journey? As you can see on the slide, we have 4 choices. You can just throw in a letter. So is it just exploring? We're learning about AI's potential, but haven't started any initiatives yet. B, early implementation. We're experimenting with AI in limited use cases. C, scaling up. We have AI-driven processes in place and are working on expanding their role in Treasury. D, AI embedded Treasury. AI is fully integrated into our Treasury operations, providing real-time insights and automation. Or E, we don't see AI as a priority for our Treasury function right now. So if everybody in the chat can just throw in one of those letters, I'll try to quickly compile it and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I see a lot of A's, which
Yeah,
makes total sense.
we'll just give it another few seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you all for answering the poll. We'll have one more throughout this through this discussion. So I'll just end the poll right now. There's still a couple more coming in. I would say overwhelming, it's A. We had a 1 or 2 B's. So what's interesting is that, what we're gleaning is you're either just exploring, so you're at the very, very beginning of your journey, or you're very early in the journey where you're just figuring out how you're going to leverage AI. So I think that's super interesting. And in us speaking with clients, and I don't mean to speak for Tanya, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, we're all seeing the same thing. People are just exploring, or they're very, very early in their journey to implement AI and to create automated processes. So, Tanya, back over to you. That was super interesting, and it just confirms what we've been seeing out in the marketplace.
Agreed. Yes, thanks, Neil. Well, I think, and we're going to talk about a few examples and use cases today, but what I also noticed in the market is that some people have started using AI tools, but for some fragments of their process, which is great. It's a great start. This is the question we receive very often. How do I start? Like, where do I begin? What do I do to just kind of test it, to proof of concept, and go from there? And while there's a structured approach, which I think eventually will be needed if you really want to scale AI within the organization. And by structured approach, I mean like really consolidating data, understanding the sources, just kind of doing an inventory of systems and data sources that are available. While this is the structured approach, there is like a quick win approach, so to speak. So I've seen many companies doing this, which I think is perfect because before you have to get excited about the technology, right, and really understand that it's not a threat. It could be, but again, to my earlier point, I think it's up to us to not make it a threat, but an extension of our team and really, kind of really a team member, so to speak, a machine that we can delegate our work to and routine tasks and kind of pay more attention to the strategic insights and value that we can bring. So, I mean, and I started by saying that I see that AI has been implemented in fragments of the process. So if we take cash flow forecasting, for example, and we will talk about this in a little more detail, comparing traditional approach to what AI can bring to the table. I just recently had a conversation with a Treasury team, and they were describing that they are using AI for kind of to research some of the emails that come in to Treasury inbox, just search text through a language model to understand if there's any valuable information that would affect the forecast. And I thought that's brilliant. I mean, this is definitely not, you could not say, yeah, we're using AI for forecasting per se, because you're building a separate model, which is in your TMS system or Excel based or whatever. But the fact that you're using a tool somewhere else that helps you with gaining earlier, like online insight into the changes to the forecast. That's a really great use of AI, and it's great time saver. So like just a little alert on a daily basis that they receive in their inbox saying, "Here's what we found," or what the tool has found. That can be very helpful and strong too. So even though most companies are just exploring the use cases and just kind of curious, other kind of teams have started small by using these tools here and there. So if we flip to the next slide, we can start talking about the actually what is what is needed to implement AI, and this is not plug and play solution, right? And like I said, it can be if it's a very small part of the process, it's obviously easier to get started with. But if it's something that you really want to get for longer term, you would probably need to think through your processes and your systems first. So quality data is going to be very important, making sure that you have proper integrations in place, such as your TMS has to be integrated with ERP system on the level that allows for information flow. And then clear objectives is also very important kind of thing. It's obvious to say this, but we sometimes hear, hey, we would like to use AI in our organization, but when you ask, okay, what do you want to use it for? We don't know. We just, we just want to go ahead and try, which is a great motivation. But like I said, it's up to us to think through what exactly we want to achieve, and through kind of which part of the process we want to do that. And in the end of this session, we've put together a slide with a framework, so to speak, of how to take for all of us take away just of how we can think through. Do we need AI? Do we not need AI? But before we get there, I just wanted to run through a few examples and use cases to help us think through this. So the next slide, we these are the three use cases we're going to discuss. So cash flow forecasting being the first one, and then we'll talk about AR, accounts receivable. I think it's important to talk about automation of the processes that are not necessarily treasury, like pure treasury, but we all know that when we talk about the cash cycle, anything that's one step upstream, so to speak, if we think about the cash flows and actual stream or downstream, all of these pieces are very important because they have the immediate effect on cash or cash in the bank. And so working cross-functionally with AR teams, AP teams can be critically important for the success of the organization. So we'll talk a little about AR automation and how AI can help with that. And then we'll talk about treasury reporting and executive insights. And we'll share some information about an AI tool that is not a product, but like a concept and actually an existing tool that can be used by some organizations and tailored to their specifics. So jumping into cash forecasting discussion, if you can flip to the next slide, please, Neil. Mm-hmm. So cash forecasting, I'm not going to talk about, how to. We all know that this is such a complex endeavor to to improve forecasting. There are so many moving parts. What I would like to talk about today is traditional automation of forecasting versus AI-based, and how we can start by maybe just doing some traditional automation even, before we jump to AI. And sometimes this is the part that gets left out. So some companies have mandate from their boards to use AI as soon as possible. So they start with the most critically important processes. Forecasting would be one of those, and they just really want to implement AI right away and just apply it to whatever process they have right now. So I would encourage to first kind of maybe revisit the current state and the current process and see what traditional solutions and traditional automation can be used first. Because if we really work on getting the, kind of our time series forecasting right, so to speak, by that, I mean, if we're using our historical trends to forecast forward, just making sure that we have them right, that we have enough data, that we have all the data in one place, that helps tremendously, right? And this is very important. If you even implement AI and give it inconsistent data, it's going to give inconsistent result and output. So as usual in IT, we always hear this all the time, garbage in, garbage out. So very important to understand that we have a consistent and, automated process as is. And that all the traditional kind of, all of these pieces, the making sure the data flow is correct, the integration is not leaving out some systems with certain business units that are not integrated with, in our forecast. We'll know the pitfalls that are pretty kind of common. And so overcoming these helps tremendously. But what do we what do we see in implementing AI? If you can flip to the next slide, we've put together a few bullets here, like where AI makes a difference. So with, like I mentioned, if you have a good and consistent historical trend, you can, of course, always forecast forward. What happens if there are some external factors that are in effect? And we've seen a disruption in our processes during COVID when things changed. And so our historical data was not as reliable as before. Or making an example from my recent experience in my job, we opened a new hospital. So it is really challenging to forecast for a new business unit that just starting the operations. You don't have historical data for it, right? So scenario kind of analysis and just kind of taking in account newer data and kind of playing out several scenarios for going forward is a more kind of sophisticated task. So in these scenarios, AI tools can help Although we need to keep in mind that if we're talking about machine learning, for example, tools that can be always used, they require more, they require vast amounts of data. So they require a lot of data points, and I'm talking millions of data points maybe. So sometimes it's just a challenge on its own to collect all the data points to really use them and derive insights from them. But it's doable. And in some companies, especially transaction heavy, like when it's business to customer, kind of direct sales or something like this, makes total sense to actually finally find the use for all this data that's being collected in the organization. While for other companies, it would make less sense to actually implement machine learning for forecasting. But where AI can bring value is working with kind of routine tasks that are not as easily can be not as easily described as the usual machine algorithms would require. So for example, if you have a system and the flow of data into your forecasting tool, let's call it this way, whatever it is, and if it's just one system to another, that's an easier thing that can be done through just simple integration between the systems. But imagine that you have, and I just made this example earlier talking about the emails that would come in. So we all know that in Treasury, we'll take everything that we can get, right? So if we receive information about future cash flows, inflows, or outflows, whatever it is, we want to take it, we want to use it in our forecast. So it can be different, they can be different sources of information. It can be electronic documents coming in, could be emails, can be just, information that's uploaded manually from time to time to another system that we don't have access to through integration. So all sorts of things can be part of our process. And sometimes we don't think, or we just don't know which tools can be helpful for us to use all this data in our forecast. So AI is a great tool for this. It can work with different types of data. It can, help with finding insights in all of it. It can bring this information into one place, and then it can actually trigger certain kind of algorithms to work with this data. And we'll talk in a little more detail about this when we talk about the AI assistant and Treasury reporting. But same thing for cash forecasting. It's just all about the access to insights that can help with forecasting. And again, because I'm not talking about specific products, I'm not kind of going too deep into how exactly that can be mapped out. But the idea here is that it can be tailored, and should be, I think, tailored to each organization. And we as Treasury professionals are to work with technology providers to achieve that. So on the next slide, this concept is just illustrated in those three little green boxes. So statistical models, like the baseline for forecasting, what we are all kind of doing right now, making sure that we are using, just Excel-based formulas, or in our forecasting tools that we're using the models just to analyze historical data and extrapolating it for going forward using all the insights that we have. Then we add the layer of AI-driven insights to improve it, to refine the accuracy, to find anomalies, because if trained properly, AI tools can help us find anomalies in data that are not that obvious for human eye, because we would always try and validate what we've put together, the forecast, right? And so looking at it, just eyeing through the output and different numbers. So human eye cannot always detect certain things that AI, if trained properly to look for those things, would identify just much faster and easier. And so adapting the forecast to changing environment, or just to fast pace of growing business, this is definitely the room for improvement where AI can bring value. And then and then the actual process of incorporating external data and operational data that we are not able to use right now, just because of the variety of this data. like with machine learning tools that I mentioned earlier, like if you have so many data points about customer behavior or anything that you were just unable to use in the past, now is the time to kind of revisit it and see if it really brings value to start using this data. So I think that's about it about forecasting, and we can move to the next use case about account receivables. And again, same approach here from the standpoint of how it works right now, what traditional automation and rule-based payment matching we're using right now, and then we'll talk a little more about how we can enhance it through AI. So right now, ERP systems, TMS systems can be integrated, and hopefully this is the on the roadmap for many organizations to actually improve their cash application process and reconciliation process. And the idea, kind of the ideal outcome of this automation with using traditional tools is to do faster cash application, make sure that we're reducing manual work, make sure our reconciliation is comprehensive and quick and robust. And then at the end of the day, we just want to make sure that we are, first of all the controls are in place, and then second of all, that we actually do understand how AR is flowing, and because it's important to understand which cash lands in the bank and when, right, at the end of the day for us. So all this is important for cash flow. Now, with on the next slide, we are looking at how AI can help streamline cash collection processes. Again, not talking about a product that would help with this, although there are some which are pretty good and have been in the market for quite a while. So for anyone using the platforms for collections that are starting embedding AI technologies, this is actually fantastic. And again, an opportunity for Treasury to jump in and maybe talk cross-functionally with these teams, just to figure out which insights Treasury can get out of these more robust processes in AR or in AP, really. But just because I know that in some organizations, actually Treasury and account receivables are really close and working together, depending on the industry, just kind of want to review quickly how AI can help with AR as well. So, and we called it edge cases. And so when we say edge cases, it means different scenarios that don't fit into standard automation rules. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, whatever the automation is in place, it's usually, integration between systems, some algorithms that are matching outgoing invoices with incoming cash and all of that. And so if there is not enough transparency in this process, there can be a lot of exceptions. So if cash cash application process starts to lag behind, can put a toll on Treasury, because the predicting of the future incoming cash becomes more difficult. So if there are inconsistencies, especially if these inconsistencies are repetitive and it is hard to kind of track them, AI can really help with that, because automation of routine tasks, but through the ways that are not as easy to describe as a rule, like if this, then that. So this is where AI shines and where it really can bring value. Can you move one slide forward, Neil?
You want me to go back or forward? I'm sorry.
Forward.
Oh, okay. I thought, I'm sorry.
Yep, no problem. And so I discussed the kind of inconsistencies in data, different scenarios when the routine tasks deviate. So this is when AI can be particularly helpful, or like straightforward things like missing details in a payment. If you are receiving certain payments from a certain customer, and then one of them, somehow there was a glitch in their system or something happens, it comes in differently, or there are certain details that are missing. Very often the systems would put it in an exception queue and then can cause delays and stuff like that. So this is also where AI can fill gaps, understand from the kind of learning of the kind of structure of payments and customer base, and apply this knowledge when it is actually working through this the queue, the workflow and the queue for these transactions. And this can be really accelerate things and speed them up. If you move to the next one, so like I said, the impact of AI-driven AR can be it can be really noticeable because it affects the cash flow, the speed of the cash cycle, and at the end of the day, it helps us to forecast cash. So this is a very interesting application, and the one that we are seeing not only product-based like platforms that are products for AR are using, but also teams are using in collaboration, working between AR teams and Treasury teams. The next use case that I'm going to talk about on the, this is just a few last points on the AR.
You want me to go one more slide?
Yep, to the next one on Treasury reporting. And this is where it gets really interesting because here we want to talk about, like I said, about a concept of having an assistant, like part of your Treasury team that helps you with your daily work and with Treasury reporting and with kind of, quick answers to tough questions, so to speak. So, and this, again, this is something that has to be tailored for specific need, but we're just going to, for the sake of making an example, we're just going to talk through one of the examples. Let's say just our usual, can be cash positioning, for example, right? So how it works, we would do it every day. We would pull data from multiple sources. Most of the time, this is Excel-based, although some organizations are using treasury management systems to do that. Doesn't really matter what tool is used, but the idea is that more often than not, it is kind of one and done thing. So we pull the position in the morning, that's it. There is we are moving on to the next task, right? There is no way we're going to update it, well, unless there is a really like big payment coming in or something like, a one-off thing is going to happen or there's a big deal. So unless there's something extraordinary happening that day, we're not really going back and updating this reporting, right? But there are some scenarios where the CFO, for example, wants to run scenario testing and say, hey, what if we do this and this and that? Or even kind of thinking through in the kind of mind of CFO, of the CFO, it is always interconnected with a short-term forecast, for the week or the next 3 weeks, and how where we stand right now would affect the future, right? So that's the most critical question. So in answering these questions, it can be a really labor-intensive kind of situation, because then we have to run a scenario, then another, and so when the process is very manual, it just takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do this. And I think as a vision for the future, well, and I say for the future, but this is something available right now. So I'm just saying that this is something that's not out of the box and requires to put some preparation in, but can be a huge time saver in the future. And but it is just important to prepare everything, to kind of set the sources, understand what the process is, how this, prepare a dashboard, for example, for the cash position that you actually usually have in Excel. So doing some prep work and then embedding AI assistant, and I just call it AI assistant for the sake of name, so it can be called anything, but let's call it an assistant in the sense that it helps in our daily work. So embedding AI assistant in it can help to actually carry out, the process of positioning cash and preparing reporting with as many input details as we want, right? And if you move to the next slide, I think we can, so pretty much I covered that. And I just wanted to maybe do a quick Q&A with Paul Chaika here, because the idea of AI assistant is industry agnostic, and doesn't have to be, can be Treasury specific, can be specific to any other process. And with the experience that Paul has working with different teams in different industries on tools similar to what I'm describing right now, I think it can be just an interesting perspective from him. And so I prepared a few questions for you, Paul, if you don't mind.
Yep, sure.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about, and I'm kind of painting a picture here, right? So I'm talking, we have a reporting process, right? We do this every day. We connect data sources. Then let's say our CFO asks us a question, like what happens if? So as I understand, AI assistant can retrieve real-time data and answer executive questions instantly, right? So can you talk us through how exactly this works under the hood, and what is happening when a CFO asks a question like this? Like, for example, what is our cash position across all entities right now, which can be like, let's say, a few hours later, a few hours after we provided the report. Now he's asking, what is our cash position across all entities right now? So what happens next?
Yeah, so when a user, like in our case, in CFO, asks a question, a assistant solution follows a certain process to deliver an accurate answer. So the first step is understanding the question. So the system uses a large language model to analyze the question and determine what data from the company's like database or data knowledge base is needed to provide the answer. Second step is generating the query. So large language model translates the question into an SQL query that retrieves the relevant data from the company's database. Next step is validating and running the query. So the system checks if the query is accurate and efficient before execution, and after that, execute it to fetch the correct data. And the final step is generating the response. So AI processes the raw data that we received from a database, converts it into some human-readable summary, and present the final answer in the chat interface. So all these steps allows CFO to get real-time insights without manually searching through, for example, reports or databases, or even asking an IT department to prepare new reports for him.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So we're talking about an actual conversation that our CFO can have with Treasury, so to speak, but through the assistant, based on the information that Treasury prepared, but also just in human language, right? Because we have this language model capabilities at our disposal right now. So this allows, and us as well, if not necessarily for the CFO, that was just an example, but like myself included, when I look at, the short-term forecast, and then I'm looking at today's cash position, that's what's on my mind. I think, what if this happens? What if we don't receive this cash? What if we do? So whatever scenarios are, on someone's mind, or if we probably have something specific in mind, like there is an acquisition, well, this requires longer term forecasting as well. But in terms of the moving cash purely, right? What happens? So interesting. So what Paul just described to me sounds like a little like magic, right? So I can ask my dashboard a question, it can come back with an answer immediately. But so many things are happening under the hood. There's got to be, and this is why we talk about data all the time. Like that's why we talk about data and data sources and integrations, and that's why these are so important. Because unless this is all consolidated in one place, there will be no database for this language model to go to, to fetch data from, so to speak, or it will be incorrect. So that's why I'm saying it's so important for Treasury team to work with IT on implementations like that. So Paul, so from the product design standpoint, what are the biggest challenges in making AI assistants truly effective in a treasury environment, do you think?
Yeah, so designing an effective AI assistant for Treasury team comes with a few key challenges.
Mhm.
So the first challenge is that data is scattered across multiple sources. So Treasury data usually lives in different places, like, for example, internal databases, some external financial systems, Excel files, and even emails. So AI here works best if all relevant data is centralized. So all it's making data integration a crucial first step here. So the second challenge is inconsistent data structure. So if data is stored in different formats or lacks clear labels, the AI may struggle to interpret it correctly. So data standardization and adding clear descriptions help the AI understand and retrieve information more accurately and faster. And I think the last challenge here is complex analytical questions. So from our real life experience, treasury professionals often ask highly detailed and nuanced questions that require deep financial analysis. So some queries here may be too complex for AI to process directly. So in this case, this type of questions require predefined reports or analytics.
Okay, so probably just if there are a number of different scenarios that usually come up, or like I said, if there is a certain need that is just common for a specific organization, and if we predefine what usually is expected, what which types of research and which types of kind of data are needed, then it makes the job of AI easier and the output more consistent, from what I understand. But how should Treasury teams prepare? How should teams prepare their data and their systems before implementing such a tool, such an AI-driven reporting tool?
Yeah, so here I'd like to talk about it in terms of the challenges that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
So to get the most out of the AI-powered reporting tool, Treasury teams should focus on these three key preparations. So the first one is centralize and maintain data. So as I mentioned before, AI performs best when all relevant data is stored in one place. So before implementing AI, it's best to integrate all relevant systems and data sources like spreadsheets or emails into a unified data warehouse and keep it up to date. So the possible solution here is building integration workflow that connects all relevant data sources, put the data into the centralized data warehouse, and keep it up to date. So the second preparation is improving data organization and labeling. So AI relies on metadata. So it's things like the table and column names, if we're talking about database. So to understand what data it's working with right now. So for example, if we have a table that is with name A1 and this table has a column B5, then AI won't recognize that this column contains, for example, invoice data. So here we have two possible solutions. So the first one, if creating a new data storage system, prepare clear and straightforward names for tables and columns. Or the second option, if working with already existing system, prepare descriptions of what each table and column represents so the AI can understand it correctly. And the last preparation here is preparing complex analytical reports. So some financial questions require advanced analytics that AI may not be handle on its own. Such, for example, determining anomalies in invoices. So in this example, if there is no specific anomalies column in database, the AI won't know how to find these anomalies. So to address this, team can create a description or a description or like predefined reports that AI can use to get required data from these data sources. So to sum up here, Treasury team should first centralize and update all relevant data in one place. Second, clearly define and label data for better AI understanding. And the third one is prepare predefined reports for complex financial questions.
Yeah, thanks. So some hand holding, so to speak, if you can say this about a machine, is needed here because it's just it's not a magic wand or anything. So we only can cut costs and get access to real-time visibility and enhance decision making if we do some preparation, and also if we envision how it's actually going to help us and what it's going to do for our organization. No magic pill here. So yeah, thanks, Paul. And moving to the next slide, I think this covers the pretty much the use cases that we wanted to cover. Let's talk about common mistakes and how to avoid them. So, I mean, we discussed data very extensively today. So I just want to reiterate that there is no way you're going to stop hearing about data when you hear about AI. And hopefully a few takes away from today's conversation would help you, jumpstart the process of just managing data a little more consistently. And maybe if you're implementing a system right now, and it's a good opportunity to, especially if it's an ERP system or some other big implementation, this is a good opportunity to think through, so it is very likely that in the future, I may want to add AI functionality on top of what I'm implementing right now. So it's a really good point in time to take a look and say, okay, is my data in this system consistent with such simple thing as labeling of data in my other system? Do they match? Sometimes we're just so rushed in throughout these implementations because there's a timeline and a budget that things like this fell out. And then this is the thing that we're struggling with most, even from my latest experience with ERP implementation that was a couple of years ago. But I think after the stabilization period of the system, that was the only regret that we had. Now our prior ERP system had a slightly different labeling of data that we have in our current one. So now the mapping is the pain that we have to just we just feel it every time that we're trying to bring some historical data into the new system. So simple things like this can be avoided. And other things, we discussed the number one mistake, assuming that AI will work right out of the box without customization. It would not. Adopting AI just because it's trendy, and this often leads to wasted resources. So cautionary tale here, AI can be expensive, especially if we're talking about machine learning and some the kind of analysis of vast amounts of data. This has to be defined. The measurable goals have to be defined up front. That's the key here. And then never overlook data readiness, as was discussed today. If we flip to the next slide, I think we have a poll there. Yes. So hopefully you are at the point where you can make some, you can summarize, in your head, I hope so, what you heard today and where you stand in your organization right now, and answer this question. Neil?
Yeah, so thanks, Tanya. That was really interesting and a lot of information. So let's go to our second and final poll of the day. What's the biggest challenge in implementing an AI assistant in your organization? Again, we have 5 choices: A, data readiness; B, lack of internal expertise; C, budget and resourcing; D, trust and reliability; and E, no clear use case. So if you can once again go into the chat and let us know what is the biggest challenge you're facing in implementing AI. Really appreciate that. So A, C, yeah. Give it a couple, we'll give it another minute. Just another few seconds. Great. So right now, what I'm seeing in the chat is it's really a tie between, well, both A and C, so data readiness and budget and resources. But I would say overwhelmingly A is again where people are finding challenges, which is data readiness, which almost aligns with just thinking about AI, because a lot of people don't really understand AI, and when they realize that it all goes back to their data, and then they realize their data is in a certain state, it all kind of makes sense and aligns. And then obviously you need the budget and resources to do it. So this again, once again, aligns with the type of things we're hearing when speaking with our clients. But it's just reinforcing and very interesting to see where companies are, whether it's actually in finance or treasury or other areas, are at with considering integrating AI into their processes. Tanya, back over to you. Thank you all so much for participating in the two polls. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, data readiness, not surprisingly, and but also, I mean, I guess all of these are valid, right? Reasons, but with the beauty of this is a great starting point, by the way. Making sure your data is in the place you want it to be in, and great starting point, and actually almost like 100% of the projects that are AI related, they start with data and making sure it's consistent and properly managed. And nothing AI related in this project, right? So this is just purely data warehouse and kind of structures and just understanding the systems environment. So all of the good IT stuff. I think the reason why so many organizations struggle with this is because it's not always, well, IT never looks at it from the business standpoint of each and every department, right? So and that's why I always say we should work together. Like we in Treasury and Finance, we know our challenges, and we have a vision of how what data should be available to us and where it should be and how we could make use of it. But there's not enough time, not enough resources, and it's very rare is on the roadmap as a treasury specific, like treasury data specific, right? But I think with as soon as we as soon as we hear from our leaders, like, hey, there is so much conversation about AI. Why don't we implement it in our organization? Do you think you can come up with some time savings? Do you think you can, there is a benefit for us to do this? I would say this is the perfect time to say, yes, let's start this journey. Let's start somewhere. A great place is data management, and then process management, really, as boring as it sounds, but this is number two, I think, in this process management, understanding that what we need to do, what we don't need to do, and then how we can improve that. So the decision framework, and I mean, I was just talking about how to get started and what is the how we should structure these conversations, even instead of jumping right in, should do some prep work, right? This decision framework is a little more tailored towards when to use AI versus when to use traditional solutions. And again, I think that this is also so helpful. We can achieve a lot of wins relatively quickly and inexpensively through doing this preparation work. So let's kind of also count it in as the step that goes before we all jump into implementing AI tools and everything. Although those two can go together, obviously. So, I mean, just understanding complexity of the current state, understanding what I just mentioned, what data we have, what process we have, how we can improve what we have, to just with what we have, not necessarily throw in new products and like tools there, just understanding the current state, assessing it, improving it, then moving on to evaluating data quality and availability. Some improvements here will be likely needed. It's just how things are with so many different systems and that we have right now, different products, different platforms, just so much that it's inevitable that some streamlining of data and enhancing quality of data will be needed. And then weighting cost versus return. So our favorite ROI analysis and can be not always we know the actual investment that's going to be required. And that's a whole other question. That's why I think doing really the first steps really well help to understand what investment actually will be needed, because we need to understand what the actual undertaking is, what the scope of the project is. But weighting cost versus return, understanding clear deliverables would be also a necessary step in the decision factor. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for today, and we're open to any questions, and if you have them. If not, we could probably just, if you do, please type them in the chat box. And I noticed when we were doing poll number 1, someone was responding that they are on the journey of AI implementation. So if you want to just come off mute and share your experiences and challenges, or that would be great. If not, I can address some questions that we received in other sessions like this that we did and what people asked then. But would be great if anyone is willing to share.
Tanya, I can go ahead and just in the last couple of minutes throw out a couple of questions that we received from other people before we wrap this up. So the first question that we've seen in past webinars is, what's the first step for a company that wants to implement an AI journey? Where do they start? How do they approach?
Yeah, I can answer this question. So as I mentioned before, so the first step of implementing AI here in Treasury is data integration and consolidation. So before AI can provide some meaningful insight, all relevant financial data needs to be centralized and keep up to date. So it means gather information from internal databases, some external systems, spreadsheets into a single structured data format. And integration platforms play a key role in this process. So it's allowing company to set up automated pipelines that continuously extract and update data from various sources. So once the data is well organized and accessible, AI can efficiently analyze it and generate reliable insights.
Thanks, Paul. I just thought of another interesting question we received just the other day. It was on manual workflows, and we all know how, and that's the reason why we don't have time, right? We're relying heavily on manual workflows, and what is the biggest technical challenge in adopting AI? And so that would be it to me. The biggest challenge in adopting AI is our reliance on those manual workflows and processes. And by that, I mean when we have a treasury management system that kind of works with our ERP, but there are other areas and reports that we use from yet another system that is not integrated with this current setup. So we have to bring something in manually, upload files, or during the reconciliation process, it's not fully automated. There is 20% that's still not, so it takes up all of our time. So I think the biggest challenge is for us to just try and get rid of this manual work as much as possible, and also digitize our work. If we still rely on PDFs and reading through, things, we don't have to. Now we have large language models, and this is a pretty easy, quick, and inexpensive, frankly, project to just, if you have a knowledge base of documents or PDFs, for compliance reasons, treasury policies across geographies, what have you, bank analysis, statements, whatever that is, that you have to monitor through, scroll through, and to find, to kind of to do something with them. This is the job for a language model right there. So just wanted to mention this application as well.
Absolutely. So, Tanya, if it's okay, I'm just going to wrap up as we're right up on
Sure.
the hour. Thank you all so much for joining today. We hope you found this session beneficial to you and your journeys around AI and figuring out how to modernize your current ecosystems. By the way, if you can reach out to any of us directly from the information that we provide on the slide below, or you can reach out directly to Craig. Craig, I'm sorry if I'm volunteering you for that, but Craig has all of our information as well if you don't get it quick enough. We really appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to speaking with everyone down the road. And we're available if you have any questions and just want to brainstorm or kick around ideas and need some guidance or support. We'd love to chat. That's what we're here for, and that's what we love to do. So once again, great speaking with everyone today, and looking forward to connecting in the future. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.